There are so many other conditions that are often misdiagnosed for HS that it's really important to make sure that you get the diagnosis right before you start to worry about next steps. There really are 3 criteria to fulfill to have a diagnosis of HS. We see deep-seated painful nodules, generally in the folds, the flexural areas, and they tend to be recurrent. It's happening again and again. HS is often referred to as acne inversa, which is an interesting way to phrase it because they are similar types of conditions. They both involve follicular occlusion, which means a blockage of a hair follicle or pore that gets inflamed, tender, and sore. With acne, a pimple might come to a surface, pop, drain, heal in, but there isn't this ongoing sense of drainage. Hidradenitis tends to form tracts under the skin where they just constantly drain, and that's where it can be very uncomfortable. With HS and psoriasis, there is a common connection between the two, and sometimes they can coexist in the same patient. Psoriasis is more of an inflammatory condition that affects the surface of the skin. With that being said, the appearance is completely different. Psoriasis tends to have pink plaques that are inflamed, scaly on the surface. They don't generally drain or have any odor associated with them. HS, on the other hand, tends to primarily affect those folds of skin, the flexural areas, and those draining tracts and nodules really defines it as a different condition. HS and allergic reactions tend to be very different appearances overall. Allergic reactions tend to be from within, where you might see hives or swelling in the skin, but these don't drain to the surface unless it's an allergic reaction to something on the surface. Say, for example, poison ivy is a good example of that, but even those will be shallow, superficial blisters on the surface. They also tend to be very itchy and uncomfortable versus hidradenitis, which can be very painful and sore and tender. These spots tend to be under the arms and the fold between the hip and the groin or under the breast. The most common thing that we'll see that's similar in terms of where it could appear would be staph infections. Staphylococcus is a common bacteria in the environment, and it can take up residence inside of our nose, under our arms, or in the fold between our hip and our groin area. The difference is that this is a bit more of a superficial process. We'll find that you can get draining sort of sores and pimples on the surface, but they don't tend to come together, convene under the surface. They're not as deep-seated as HS can be, and they do not tend to have that strong inflammatory response of those sinus tracts and inflammatory nodules that we'll see with HS. It is true that it's not an extremely common condition. The actual rates of HS worldwide, I've seen ranges from 0.1% of the population up to 4% of the population. So we're not talking about something that a doctor will diagnose on a daily basis necessarily. So seeking out the care of somebody that might have a lot more familiarity with the condition will only serve your skin better.